Others watched, but you stepped forward. I admire that. The first to cross my threshold deserves my full attention. Shall we begin? Such soft voices and bright eyes. You've all wandered far to find this place. Rest now, little fireflies. Let the tale unfold. I felt the shift in the wind. So many souls guided here by moonlight and wonder. Come close, the story wants to be heard. chances improved, which is crazy to me. I think I've only seen like 1 or 2 legendaries since adding all of these characters. Caught Tiger Claw before stream? Did you? Let me look. Let me scroll. Let's see. Oat Whisker, Cinder. Oh, you got Cinder Pelt. Barkface, Shrew-Paw, Ash-Paw. Oh, you did get Tiger Star. You actually got okay, so that makes 3 then. But 3 out of like several months of us doing the fish thing. I think we've added these fish for like 2 months now. And there's only been 3 legendaries. And that's pretty much why I improved the chances of the legendaries. I have the legendary chance ticked on. Oh, Holy's pulling up the fish decks right now. If you actually look at the fish decks, there are a couple that aren't from warriors. The ones that are just regular names are people. And they're a lot harder to catch than the legendaries from warriors. I actually did a small amount of weight for them. I know cats can be a lot heavier, but I only went like to 3 or 5 on maximum with most of these cats. I think the only one that I went to 10 on difficulty was the mountain lion. The mountain lion has the 10 kg. And that's because it does weigh more compared to the cats, but like, I'm still not gonna put at like, you know, 200 or so pounds like it's supposed to be. I'm not doing that. Because the kg actually affects how often you can pull them too. So I'm trying to avoid going too high on them. If that makes sense. But so last time we were in the chapters, we had found out through all the cats that Greystripe got captured, and we did rescue all the cats from the cages aside from Greystripe being yoinked by the humans. So we don't know what Greystripe is currently or what's happening to Greystripe. And all the clans have finally decided, including River Clan, because they're finally starting to starve, that they all need to leave together. And it's going to be a very difficult journey because they are already on the edge of starving. They still have yet to actually get the vision. I believe that they're going to have this vision if it had not already came as a sign. Once they're walking over the pebbles of the old high rock from Poor Trees. Because in the last chapters, we found out that it was crushed to bits using a machine and turned to smaller rocks. The once giant rock that they used to call all the clan meetings at has been turned to pebbles. Posture check. Why you I'm sitting up straight. Thank you for the bow tie. I'm sitting up straight. Stream has just started. Thank you for the maid head beads. Stream has just started. Why would I already have bad posture? Thank you for the hydrate. I'll drink some water. I should probably open my energy drink too. Let me do that. There we go. Ah, delicious. Anyway, so that was what happened in the previous couple of chapters, if you were here last week. But from chapter 16 to 20 is this stream. Once we reach 20, of course, I'll probably just be asking people like, oh, do you want me to raid out to anyone or look at my list? If not, then usually I'll end stream there because I don't really raid people that aren't suggested to me. Because, you know, spooky. You're gonna make me oh, Holy, you're so mean. You're making me get up. Alright. Let me do it. Probably need to stretch anyway. It's been a long day. Are you happy, Holy? You've almost redeemed every redeem in there. Hold on. Have you redeemed every redeem that's in there? I am now curious. Hold on. No, you didn't do that one, or head pat, comically large bow. You're missing about 5. Posture check. Holy. Whatever. I'm sitting up straight. All right, you guys. Let's start this off. Chapter 16. Clouds obscured the night sky as Leafpaw padded down the hard stone slope. A mild breeze promised that there would be no frost tonight, and she could smell rain. Most of the clan was sleeping. Shadow Clan was huddled near the edge of Stunning Rocks, as far from ThunderClan cats as they could be. Exhaustion dragged at Leafpaw's limbs, but her mind teemed with thoughts. Memories of the day's horrors mingled with uncertainties about the journey to come. Knowing she would not be able to sleep, she headed for the forest. Even in Leafbear, its musty odor and the feeling of the earth beneath her paws soothed her. As she neared the trees, she heard Cody's voice calling to her. Leafpaw! The kitty pet was sheltering among some brittle fronds of bracken. Cody, what are you doing out here? There's something I need to tell you. Cody scraped at the ground with her paw. Leafpaw stared at her. What? I'm leaving, Cody mewed simply. I'm going home. Leafpaw fought back and urged to cry. No, please stay. She stepped forwards and touched her nose to Cody's ear tip. This is no life for me. All this death and blood and uncertainty, Cody went on. I am happy with my housefolk, and they'll be missing me. I never meant to stay this long, but Birchkit needed me to begin to... He began to enjoy the freedom, Leafpaw interrupted. Suddenly desperate to remind her new friend what she'd be giving up if she went back to her 2 legs. I guess I did, Cody admitted. But today, I just saw how fragile your freedom is. You have to fight for everything. For your food, even somewhere to shelter. She shook her head apologetically. I like to know where I'd be sleeping every night, and that there will always be food when my belly grows empty. And I like my housefolk. Not all 2 legs are as bad as the ones destroying a home. Would you like me to show you the way through the forest? Leafpaw offered. Firestar promised you an escort. Cody shook her head. The woods seem quiet enough, she mewed. There won't be any monsters about at night. Anyway, you'll need rest for your journey. She glanced back towards Stunning Rocks. Thank Firestar for me. Leafpaw pressed her nose sadly against her friend's cheek. Cody closed her eyes and sighed. Then she straightened up. I've said goodbye to Birchkit. Ferncloud is eating properly again, and he'll be fine with her now. Thanks for taking care of me when we're in the 2-leg nest, Leafpaw whispered. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. And keep an eye out for Greystripe, Cody promised. If I see him, I'll tell him where you've gone and that his clan's waiting for him. Leafpaw felt a warm tongue rasp her ear. Bye, Leafpaw, Cody murmured. Good luck. Goodbye, Cody. With an aching heart and half wishing she could have convinced Cody to stay, Leafpaw watched her friend vanish into the shadows of the forest. A rustle in the bracken made her jump, and Sorrowtail slipped out from the trees. Has Cody gone home? She said her two legs would be missing her, Leafpaw explained. I heard, Sorrowtail nodded. Are you okay? Of course. She braced herself with Sorrowtail to make a sharp comment about how kitty pets didn't belong in the wild, but instead, Sorrowtail just blinked sympathetically. Let's sleep out here tonight, she suggested. My tongue caught on myself. Damn. She suggested. It is our last night in the forest, after all. The thought of never spending another night under these trees took Leafpaw's breath away, and for a moment she wanted to lie down and bury her face in the leaf mold and forget that all this was happening. How could they leave if they didn't know where they were going? But she followed Sorrowtail into the bracken, and together they flattened a patch into a nest big enough for the two of them. As she settled down, Leafpaw felt Sorrowtail's soft tail brush her nose. Your clan is still here, Sorrowtail murmured. I know. Leafpaw tried not to think of Cody hurrying home through the forest alone. Before she closed her eyes, she looked up at the branches and gave thanks to StarClan for the shelter they had given ThunderClan in the past moons. If only she could be sure there was a home as safe as this had once been, waiting for them at the end of their journey. Cold rain woke Leafpaw, spattering on her fur, and she opened her eyes to a watery gray dawn. She stretched and shook the raindrops from her pelt. Her movement woke Sorrowtail. Brrr, the tortoiseshell complained, hauling herself to a pause. What a day for a journey. She didn't suggest that Firestar might delay leaving until the rain has stopped. Leafpaw realized bleakly that all the cats knew they could not stay in the forest a moment longer. They left their sodden nest and padded to the bottom of the Sunning Rocks, where the two clans were beginning to gather. Tawny Pet was sharing tongues with the Shadow Clan apprentice, stopping now and then to shake rain from her ears. I wonder what it's like for Tawny Pet being back with ThunderClan, Sorrowtail whispered, following Leafpaw's gaze. Strange, I guess, she murmured. It's going to be very wet under Paw. Ashfur's worried mew rose from the ThunderClan warriors and apprentices. The other cats looked anxiously at Brambleclaw, and Leafpaw knew it was not just the rain that was making their pelts bristle. The whole clan was nervous about the journey ahead. Mud or no mud, we will leave as soon as RiverClan comes, Firestar insisted. Can't you hear the two-legged monsters? Leafpaw listened, and sure enough, through the drumming of the rain, she heard monsters rumbling behind the trees. She had never heard them this close to Sunning Rocks before, and the thought of them bearing down on their final refuge filled her with alarm. I want all warriors and apprentices to catch whatever they can before the journey, Firestar meowed. We'll share whatever we find with ShadowClan. ShadowClan will organize its own hunting patrols, Blackstar called across the rock. Leafpaw saw her father's face darken for a moment. Very well. Our warriors will show you the best places to hunt. We can find our own prey, Blackstar growled. Firestar curled his lip but said nothing. Instead, he turned to Brambleclaw. The young warrior's tail was twitching, and he kneaded the ground impatiently. I want you to organize 2 hunting patrols, Brambleclaw, but don't let any cat go near the 2 legs. Sounds as if he's talking to Graystripe, Mousefur hissed in Leafpaw's ear. Why doesn't he just name Brambleclaw deputy and be done with it? 'Cause that would be like admitting Graystripe is dead, Desperate growled back, overhearing. Firestar flicked the rain from his whiskers and turned to Cinderpelt. Prepare traveling herbs for everyone, he ordered. Will you have enough? Oh yes, Cinderpelt answered. I just hope that wherever we're going has the plants I need to replenish my stocks. Leafpaw blinked. She hadn't thought about that before. But their new home had marigold, yarrow, comfrey, and all the other precious plants she had learned to care with. Her paws trembled at the thought of having to look after the clan without them, and she took a steadying breath before hurrying over to help mix the herbs they'd need for the journey. Bramaclaw led a hunting patrol into the dripping woods, and Mousefur followed with another. Blackstar watched them disappear into the forest before muttering something to his deputy. Russetfur, a moment later, a dark ginger she-cat, her pelt plastered against her thin body, headed down the slope with several ShadowClan warriors. Cinderpelt shook her head. ShadowClan should have joined ThunderClan patrols, she murmured. I have no idea of the best places to hunt. With prey so scarce, they'll need all the help they can get. Why is Blackstar being so stubborn? Leafpaw mewed. ShadowClan has always been proud. Cinderpelt started to take supplies out of the cleft in the rock. Now that they've been driven out of their home, pride is all they have left. But surely it would be wiser to combine our strengths. Leafpaw protested. We have a long, difficult journey ahead. The boundaries between the clans run deep, Cinderpelt reminded her. Traditions are all we have to cling to. Then you agree with Blackstar? Leafpaw asked in disbelief. Of course not, but I understand him, Cinderpelt replied. Although it is frustrating, she added. I offered to check on their injured cats when I woke, but Blackstar sent me away. He told me that ThunderClan had done enough for ShadowClan yesterday, and he didn't intend to make his clan's debt any greater than it was. How can he talk about debts? Leafpaw exclaimed. Yesterday the 4 clans faced the 2 lakes together, and we were all so powerless. StarClan couldn't even stop them. I know, the medicine cat mewed. But we're not powerless to find a new future for ourselves. So let's get on with mixing the traveling herbs. Every journey begins with a single paw step, and this one is up to us. As the rain fell steadily, they began to combine the bitter herbs that would give the cat strength for the journey. Half starved for so long, they needed this ancient mixture, handed down from medicine cat to apprentice for countless moons, more than ever before. When the pile of herbs was complete, Leafpaw remembered she had not told her father about Cody. Can you spare me for a while? She asked. There's nothing more we can do here, Cinderpelt assured her. I'll check on Ferncloud. She glanced at the nursery hollow. Ferncloud was sitting on the edge of the hollow, washing Birch Kit. The kit struggled resentfully, looking as normal as any kit ever had. As his mother rasped his ears with her rough tongue, the sight gave Leafpaw a rush of hope. She imagined Birch Kit growing up and training to become a warrior in their new home. And a profound belief that ThunderClan would survive washed over her like sunshine. She quickly covered the traveling herbs with leaves to protect them from the rain, and hurried up the slope towards her father. He was staring across the tree tops that stretched beyond sunning rocks. He sat up straight, despite the pounding rain, with his tail curled over his paws and his ears pricked, scenting the air almost as though he welcomed the prospect of the journey ahead. It was hard to believe he had lost a life only yesterday. When he heard Leafpaw calling him, he turned his head. Yes. I thought I should let you know that Cody went back to the 2 Lakes last night. Firestar nodded. I'd begun to hope she'd stay, Leafpaw confessed. Now is no time for a stranger to join the clan, Firestar pointed out gently. But she is great with Birchkit. That doesn't make her a clan cat, he argued. All the time she was with us, the sense of the forest never drew her from the safety of the camp. She fled here from wooden nest because the danger was greater than the thought of living with us. I know what kitty pets think of us cats who live in the forest. She'll be happier with her housefolk. Leafpaw was surprised to hear her father use a kitty pet word, and wondered if he was thinking of his early days with Two Legs. Cody had not had the time to talk with him about Smudge. Was he thinking of that kitty pet friend now? You'll miss her, won't you? A meow unexpectedly. Yes, I will, Leafpaw admitted. She was a good friend, but she knows we have to go away. She stared down into the forest. We're leaving so many familiar things behind, she murmured. Her father's eyes clouded with sorrow. Yes, like Graystripe. Leafpaw couldn't think of anything to say that would comfort him. However much he wanted to believe that his deputy was still alive, it was still almost impossible that Graystripe could find his way back to them. I know we must go, Firestar went on. I want to leave as much as any cat, but I can't bear the thought that I might never see him again. You don't know that for sure, Leafpaw mewed hopefully. Cody told me she'd look out for him and tell him where we've gone. A glimmer of hope sparked in Firestar's eye, then disappeared. How will he escape the Two Legs? He asked bleakly. And then find our new home. Are you going to name a new deputy? She ventured. No! Her father leapt up, and Leafpaw shrank back. There's no need, he went on quietly. There's even the smallest chance he's alive. And Graystripe is still ThunderClan's deputy. Before Leafpaw could say anything, mews sounded from behind them. The ThunderClan hunting patrols had returned and were carrying fresh kill up the rock. Birds and mice, not many, but enough to allow each cat a small meal. ShadowClan's hunting patrol returned shortly after. They found only one thrush between them. Will you share our catch with them? Leafpaw mewed to her father. Blackstar would be insulted by the offer, Firestar replied. Suppose they can hunt while we travel, Leafpaw suggested. Hopefully we all can. There must be more prey out there than here. Firestar shook himself. Go and get something to eat, he ordered. RiverClan will be here soon. Okay. Leafpaw hurried down to where Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw were sharing a calf-inch. They looked drenched, their pelts dark and sodden. Want some? Squirrelpaw offered. Yes, please. Leafpaw's belly felt hollow, and the scent of fresh kill made her mouth water. Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw sat back and let her take a bite. Do you want some to give to your sister? Leafpaw asked Brambleclaw. The ShadowClan cats were laboriously passing around their meager catch. Each cat only took a small mouthful before pushing it to the next. Brambleclaw shook his head. I wouldn't waste my time. Leafpaw was startled by the bitterness in his voice. We met Tawnypelt while we were out hunting, and Brambleclaw asked if she wanted to hunt with us. Squirrelpaw explained. She told us that she was ShadowClan warrior and would never hunt for another clan. I don't know why she has such a superior thought about it, Brambleclaw growled. It's as if she'd forgotten that she was born a ThunderClan cat, or that we journeyed to the Sendron place together. Must be difficult for her, being among ThunderClan, Leafpaw ventured.
She probably feels she has to prove her loyalty to ShadowClan more than ever. Leafpaw's right, Squirrelpaw meowed. Don't take it personally, Brambleclaw. It wasn't long ago that you were telling me that your first loyalty is to ThunderClan, not your kin. Ad starts in a minute, you guys. Allow Tawnypelt to have the same feelings for ShadowClan. I suppose so, Brambleclaw agreed grudgingly. I just wanted to hunt with my sister again. Leafpaw heard the sadness in his voice, and thought how hard it must be to have a littermate in another clan. She glanced at Squirrelpaw, grateful that she and her sister shared the same home, wherever it was. Leafpaw, Cinderpet was calling from the den. Come and help me. Leafpaw bounded up the slope. Will you take these herbs to the queen and elders? What about Birchkit? Just give him a half dose. Leafpaw glanced warily at Blackstar. Are we sharing with ShadowClan? We'll have some left over, Cinderpelt mewed, her eyes glittering. I'll offer them to Little Cloud and tell him we have no need for them. Blackstar can take them or leave them as he wants. Okay. We are now in ad break, so I will be right back and we'll continue where we left off. Ads are almost over. I just went ahead and used the restroom, and I'm just gonna have some water. Welcome back from the ads, everyone. Hopefully you didn't get spooked by them. Let's go ahead and continue where we left off. Leafpaw admired her mentor's kind-heartedness, as well as her craftiness. This was an offer Blackstar could accept without losing face. She picked up a bundle of herbs and carried it to Ferncloud. The she-cat accepted the bitter herbs gratefully, though Birchkit was not so thankful. Tastes like crow food, he complained. Never even eaten crow food, Ferncloud pointed out. Now just swallow it. Leafpaw purred with amusement and carried her bundle to where Frostfur, Longtail, and Speckletail lay, sheltered by the overhang. As she put the herbs down, Frostfur shook her head. Don't waste those on us, she murmured. We're not going with the clan. Leafpaw blinked. Not going? Why? Firestar trotted over. What's the matter? Phosphorus says they're not coming with us. We're too old to make such a journey, Speckletail rasped. It'd only hold you back. Longtail flicked his tail. And what use would I be? I can't even see where I'm putting my paws. Clan would help you, Firestar assured them gently. He looked up at the elderly she-cats, just as they would help all of you. We know they would, Phosphor mewed. But Speckletail and I are too old for such a change. We'd rather die here beneath Silverpelt, knowing StarClan waits for us. Leafpaw flinched. Surely StarClan would go wherever they did. Firestar nodded gravely. I cannot force you to come with us, Phosphor, he murmured. I know your paws are weary, Speckletail's too. And you already hear StarClan whispering to you. But Longtail, I won't leave you behind. When the tabby warrior opened his mouth to argue, Firestar went on. Yesterday, you heard the Wind Clan cats coming before any other cat. You may have lost your eyes, but your ears and your sense of smell are as good as any warrior's. Please come with us. I'm gonna pause here for a second, but new theory. Is Longtail the dying warrior? That is my question. Okay, back to reading. Longtail closed his sightless eyes and took a deep, shuddering breath. Then he opened them again and turned his face towards Firestar, as if he were looking straight at him. Thank you, he meowed. I will come. Stormfur bounded up the rocks. Firestar, there's a problem. RiverClan cannot leave today. Firestar's ears twitched with alarm. Why not? Mudfur is dying. We can't leave him alone. Phosphor stepped forward. We'll stay with him. We can look after him until StarClan is ready to take him, Speckletail agreed. Stormfur looked at them in surprise. But he's not one of your clan. Doesn't matter, Phosphor told him. We are staying behind anyway. We might as do what we can for Mudfur. The RiverClan camp is a lot more sheltered than this place, Leafpaw mewed. You'll be safe from Two Legs if you keep within the reeds. That's true, meowed Firestar. We'll bring Phosphor and Speckletail to the RiverClan camp, and if Leopardstar agrees, we'll leave them with Mudfur while RiverClan joins us on our journey. What's happening? Blackstar had approached the group. Mudfur is dying, Firestar explained. We must go to RiverClan camp before we travel to WindClan's territory. Blackstar curled his lip. We'll go ahead and wait for you at the edge of the forest. A croaking voice sounded behind him. Leafpaw recognized Running Nose's gray pelt. I'd like to say goodbye to Mudfur, mewed the elderly cat. I've known him since I was an apprentice. Blackstar looked at the old Tom, and for the first time, Leafpaw saw respect in his eyes. Of course, Running Nose, he meowed. You go with ThunderClan. We'll see you again at the edge of the forest. Firestar scanned the rock. Has everyone had traveling herbs? Yes, Cinderpelt replied. In fact, there are some left. ShadowClan may as well have them. It's not worth carrying them with us. Her casual tone gave nothing away. Leafpaw glanced at Little Cloud, whose tail twitched with excitement. May we use them, Blackstar? Pleaded the young medicine cat. No point in letting them go to waste, Blackstar growled. Little Cloud began handing out bundles at once. The ShadowClan leader looked at Longtail, narrowing his eyes. Leafpaw braced herself, expecting to say that they couldn't take a blind cat on such a long and dangerous journey. But Blackstar only meowed. The blind warrior can travel with us while you go to RiverClan. There's no point taking him across the river and back again. I have warriors who can lead him through the forest. Firestar blinked gratefully at the Shadow Clan leader. Thank you. He touched Longtail with the tip of his tail. Is that alright with you? I'm also thinking about how they're all leaving on the journey and how Mudfur is dying. So is it gonna be Longtail or is it gonna be Mudfur who ends up leading the way? I guess it would make sense if Mudfur does because they're a medicine cat. But it's not what it said, because it said they had to be standing on the rock. I don't know. I still want to know. I still want to see the prophecy, because I know that this shit goes around and around until it gets completed. Longtail nodded and followed Blackstar down the slope to the waiting Shadow Clan cats. Is every cat ready? Firestar called to his own clan. Mews of ascent sounded from across the rock, and the cats fell in behind Firestar as he led them down to the shore. The river was hardly more than a trickle, in spite of the ceaseless rain. Cinderpelt, Leafpaw, come with me, Firestar ordered, halting beside the river. Runningnose, Frostfur, and Speckletail were already clamoring after Stormfur over the stepping stones. The rest of the clan should wait here until we return. He nodded at Brambleclaw, putting him in charge, and followed the elders across the river. The reeds around the RiverClan camp were brown and brittle, their roots exposed. Leafpaw followed her father into the clearing and flinched as several cats spun around to look at the visitors with hostile surprise. Leopardstar stood in the entrance to the medicine cat's den, her eyes blazing. What are you doing here? Didn't Stormfur give you my message? I did, Stormfur meowed, hurrying to the center of the clearing. But Firestar has come to suggest something. Frostfur and Speckletail are staying behind. Firestar explained. They have offered to care for Mudfur. Leopardstar dipped her head. It's kind of them, she meowed, but it won't be necessary. Mudfur is nearly with StarClan. Leafpaw jumped out of the way as Runningnose wheezed in shock and staggered toward the medicine clearing. Cinderpelt followed, and Leafpaw padded quickly after them, glancing at the RiverClan leader as she went past. But Leopardstar let them go without a word. Mothwing looked up as they entered the clearing. Her eyes were clouded with grief. There's nothing more any cat can do, he told Cinderpelt. He's not in pain. I've made sure of that. Mudfur lay in the middle of the clearing. Rain dripped through the branches onto his matted flank, but he made no attempt to move into a more sheltered spot. Shadepelt, an elderly RiverClan she-cat, sat beside Mothwing, sadly watching the dying cat. Runningnose padded forwards and touched his nose to Mudfur's shoulder. Go swiftly to StarClan, my friend. We will look after your clanmates. Cinderpelt leaned down and rested her muzzle on Mudfur's pelt. As Leafpaw crouched to bury a nose in his fur, her throat filled with unmistakable scent of death. Forcing herself not to draw away, she closed her eyes. At least you can be sure StarClan is waiting for you, she thought. With a shuddering gasp, Mudfur drew his last desperate breath. His flank heaved once, then fell still forever, as the spirit joined his warrior ancestors. He's with StarClan now, Mothwing murmured. Leafpaw blinked sadly at the unmoving heap of fur. This was one cat who would never see their new home, wherever it lay. How many more cats would not make it to the end of their journey? That is the end of chapter 16. Chapter 17. How will I manage without him? Gasped Mathwin, her eyes huge and scared. You'll be fine, Cinderpelt assured her, and there'll be time to grieve, but not now. Mathwin looked at her for a moment, then nodded, and left the medicine clearing to tell her clan that Mudfur was dead. Leafpaw waited until the RiverClan cats began to pad through the tunnel to pay their final respects, and hurried out into the main clearing. Mathwin was sitting in the rain with her head bowed, water streaming from her whiskers. Can't believe he's gone, she mewed. Hasn't gone far, Leafpaw comforted her. He's with StarClan. I hope so, Mathwin murmured. Labrador emerged from the medicine clearing and padded over to Firestar. Shadepelt and Loudbelly will remain here with your elders, she meowed. They are too old to travel and wish to sit vigil for Mudfur. Firestar nodded. We'll wait until RiverClan is ready to travel, he murmured. Hawkfrost and Stormfur padded towards Leafpaw and Mathwin. For once, Hawkfrost's gaze was gentle as he rested his muzzle against his sister's cheek. I never thought we'd be leaving anyone behind, Stormfur sighed. Neither did I, Leafpaw agreed, gazing at Frostfur and Speckletail. The image of Greystripe staring out from the monster's belly flashed through her mind. Leopardstar padded to the center of the clearing and looked around. Is everyone ready? We haven't hunted today, a RiverClan queen protested, wrapping her tail protectively around her kit. We can hunt on the way, Leopardstar told her. The moment had arrived. Silently, the cats began to head for the camp entrance. Frostfur and Speckletail sat in the clearing, watching their clanmates leave. Goodbye, Frostfur, Leafpaw whispered. Goodbye, Speckletail. Good hunting. Good hunting, Frostfur replied. Leafpaw looked up at the gray sky, criss-crossed by leaf-bare branches. The rain spattered on her face, and she blinked away the drops that clung to her eyelashes. It was as if StarClan wept to see their clans leave the forest. Bleakly, Leafpaw wondered if their ancestors would travel with them, or whether this was a final farewell. Come on. Firestar's voice sounded softly in her ear. The clan will be waiting for us. The trek through the forest was hard going, the rain making the leaves slippery under paw. The RiverClan cats stayed together, keeping up with ThunderClan, but traveling separately. Sorrel fell into step beside Leafpaw, and nudged her up each time she stumbled. As they neared the edge of the forest, where there was a narrow strip of RiverClan territory before the moorland again, Leafpaw scented ShadowClan cats. She lifted her head and saw them huddled under the trees, wet and shivering. Thought you'd never get here, Blackstar complained, shaking the water from his coat. The ShadowClan cats paced impatiently around him. They're not comfortable under the trees that had once belonged to ThunderClan. Even Tawnypelt looked eager to leave, but Leafpaw longed to linger here, suddenly unable to bear the thought of saying goodbye to the forest for the last time. Firestar gazed at his clan. We must say goodbye to all we have known, he meowed. Leafpaw felt Sorrel's pelt pressing against hers, and she noticed Squirrelpaw draw closer to Brambleclaw. I want to go home, one of Tall Poppy's kits mewed, up at her mother with her eyes stretched wide. We're going home, Tall Poppy promised, her ears twitching. Our new home. As she spoke, a tawny-colored cat emerged from the trees a little way off, even though the rain masked her scent. Leafclaw recognized the stranger at once. It was Sasha. Mothwing recognized her too, because she bounded over and rolled on her belly like a kit. Hawkfrost padded after his sister more slowly, the tip of his tail flicking from side to side. The RiverClan cats watched them go with patient acceptance. But Leafpaw saw bewilderment in the eyes of the ThunderClan cats who did not know who Sasha was, and open hostility from ShadowClan cats. "What's she doing here?" Squirrelpaw whispered. "Perhaps she knows we're leaving," Leafpaw guessed. "But why did she come?" Sasha finished greeting her kits and padded toward the watching cats. Ashfur hissed threateningly, but Firestar silenced him with a look. "I didn't think we'd see you again," Leopard meowed, dipping her head to Sasha. "Nor I you," Sasha admitted. "I've come to ask Hawkfrost and Mothwing to leave RiverClan and come with me. I've seen what Two Legs are doing to your homes. It is no longer safe for them to stay with you." Hang on. I gotta clip a nail. Or like a hangnail. There we go. I got it. Mothwing looked down at her paws, and Leafpaw's heart skipped a beat. Could she really be thinking about leaving? She brushed past Sasha and faced the RiverClan medicine cat. "I know things have been tough lately, but you wouldn't really go, would you?" Mothwing blinked. I don't know." "Your clan needs you," Leafpaw protested. She rounded on Hawkfrost. "You wouldn't abandon your clanmates, would you?" "The decision is theirs." Firestar's voice rose above the sound of falling rain. "But I agree. They should remain with their clan." Sasha narrowed her eyes. "You want them to stay?" Suddenly, the wind dropped, and every cat seemed to hold their breath as she went on. "In spite of the fact that Tigerstar was their father." Leafpaw scanned the shocked faces of RiverClan cats. They obviously didn't know that Tigerstar was Hawkfrost and Mothwing's father, even though his kits had been raised in their clan. There was a long pause while Firestar held Sasha's gaze. "I want them to stay because Tigerstar was their father," he meowed. Gramclaw sank his claws into the mud, and Squirrelpaw's eyes stretched even wider. "Tigerstar was a great warrior, and these cats have proved that they inherited his courage," Firestar went on. "Their clan needs them now more than ever." He turned his gaze on Brambleclaw and Tawny Pelt. Tigerstar's children have earned their place in their clans many times over. Yes, Lechy. Why you crying, Lechy? Why you crying? Is it because they're leaving the forest? I know. There are no secrets now. Every cat knew that Tigerstar lived on in 4 cats, and that 3 clans nurtured part of his legacy. The new unopened box of tiramisu has ooh. Gross. Ew. Throw it away. Wait. If it's brand new and it has mold on it, you know what? Call them. They'll refund you or give you another one. If you just bought something from the store and it's new, you tell them. You tell them and you get free shit. Mothwing lifted her gaze, searching the faces of her clanmates. Hawkfrost raised his chin, as if he didn't care what they thought. Leopardstar nodded. Firestar is right. RiverClan needs all our warriors, and we certainly need our medicine cat. Sister gave it to me, and she's in a different state right now, so I can't get the receipt. You. Well, you could still tell them, like, you could show pictures and stuff and be like, hey. And sometimes they'll just see your phone number, and you go in, and they see it's your phone number. You show them the thing, and then you get free stuff that way. Surely my stomach can handle a teensy bits of mycelium. Oh my gosh. Well, technically, if the mold won't hurt you. Technically, because like food mold is, if you eat a little bit of it, you're gonna be fine. I mean, when I was younger, I used to pick mold off of bread and eat it because we're, you know, poor. But it's not gonna harm you. I mean, you could just scoop off the mold part. But if it's already moldy, then the store kind of owes you a new one or a refund if it's brand new like that. I'm just saying. Still gross to think about. I already had to deal with something else that was gross today, and I will tell you later. I will tell you, you know what? I will tell you after I'm done with this chapter, because we're almost done. 4 specks of, yeah, that's not gonna harm you. Just break off the mold bits. I'd take a picture of it first so you can get a refund. But they're Tiger Star's kids. Dawnflower's hiss startled Leafpaw. The RiverClan queen was staring at Leopard Star, as if she just invited a fox to join them. Squirrelpaw's eyes blazed. So what? That doesn't mean they can't be loyal. Hawkfrost is one of our best warriors, Stormfur added. He looked around at his clanmates. Have any of you ever doubted his loyalty? Never, Mistyfoot murmured. Leopardstar looked at Hawkfrost and Mothwing. Will you stay? Of course, Hawkfrost answered at once. I'd never desert my clan. He was staring at his clanmates, his eyes glittering defiantly. Well, I guess at least you got to enjoy some of it. I'm sorry that it came moldy. Leafpaw felt her tail quiver. Was it ambition or loyalty that fueled his decision? She glanced at Brambleclaw. How could 2 warriors with the same father be so different? Mothwing glanced at her mother, her ears twitching. I have to stay with my clan too, she mewed. I'm their medicine cat now. They need me. Sasha nodded. Very well. She swept her gaze over them. Firestar is right, she murmured. I see your father in both of you. Leafpaw heard a low growl come from Dawnflower. Sasha turned to the RiverClan queen. Tigerstar never knew about these kits, but he would have been proud of them. She glanced around the RiverClan cats. You're lucky to have them. She patted back to Hawkfrost and Mothwing, brushing her pelt against theirs. I wish you well on your journey, she meowed. Then she turned and padded into the forest. The ferns quivered where she had disappeared, and the clan cat stared after her in silence. That is the end of chapter 17, and I just promised a short story of how my day was earlier. So, you're talking about the nasty mold, right? Well, earlier today I was working and we were dealing with wasp nests. And let's just say that they were a little bit large. Like, you know how those small game discs were back when we had like the 64s and stuff, like the really small game discs? They were about that size, and they were littered with eggs that were about to hatch, and there was 10 of these. Yeah. My mom proceeded to step on one of them in front of me, and that sound was so visual of a squish. of a squish, and then I saw the green and the red smush out under her flip flop. Like it bubbled up. And I was so revolted. I was so absolutely revolted that I had to walk away. And it was so hard to drink my coffee after that because what does green plus red equal? Yeah, it makes brown. It was gross. Anyway, there's gonna be an ad in 40 seconds, so I guess it was perfect timing for me to talk about this story. But yeah, so we had about 10 of these. Yeah, it bubbled up. Oh, and then she told me about another nest where it got stuck on the gutter, so she had to get the ladder so she could pull it out, right? And because she hit it with the spray, they were congratulations on getting the legendary. Because she hit it with the wasp spray, they were prematurely hatching and coming out. It was just everything. Why did she have to tell me that? And then she like killed the wasp, and it's so gross. And they like all of them because they were sprayed with the instant kill wasp stuff. Oh, they were glistening. All the nests were glistening, and it was gross. Yeah, that was my work today. It was ultra gross. Anyway, you told me about the mold, so I had to tell you about this. You're not the only one that had a gross story today. I'm sorry you had to deal with mold. I'm sorry I had to deal with the visual squish of wasps. Reminds me of the time my mom sadly at the forest, sinking her claws into the familiar, rain-softened earth. All the River Clan and Thunder Clan cats lingered at the edge of the trees, as though leaving was harder than they had ever imagined. This is no longer our home, Firestar reminded them gently. Home is waiting for us at the end of our journey. He began to pad away, lowering his head against the driving rain. Squirrelpaw joined the other cats as they poured slowly out of the forest after them. Beside her, Brackenfur arched his back against the bracken fronds, brushing his scent on their dripping tips one last time. "I thought you'd change your mind," Mudclaw growled as the three clans neared the top of the slope. "Mudfur was dying," Leopardstar explained. "We waited until he had gone to join with StarClan." Tallstar sat, shivering, beside his warriors. His ribs stuck out like gnarled twigs. As the clans reached the top of the rise, he stood up, wincing at the stiffness in his limbs. "Sorry to hear about Mudfur," he meowed. "At least he died beneath Silverpelt, which is more than we will." Muttered Blackstar. His words sent a shiver of unease down Squirrelpaw's spine. "We saw Silverpelt at the Sundrown Place," she objected. "StarClan would be waiting for us when we arrive." Mudclaw's tail twitched. "We saw stars, but were they with our warrior ancestors or someone else's?" Squirrelpaw blinked, thinking of the tribe of endless hunting who watched over the mountains. What if Mudclaw was right, and they were leaving StarClan behind, as well as their homes? Blackstar clawed the muddy ground. "Are we going or are we not?" "We're ready," Tallstar replied. The moorland that stretched ahead of them was unrecognizable. All the grass swept away to reveal bare, rutted earth. Leopardstar stared across the broken ground. "Are there many monsters?" "Too many," Tallstar growled, as the cats scrambled over the first stretch of exposed ground. Squirrelpaw soon began to struggle. The mud sucked at her paws, and her legs felt stone-heavy with exhaustion. Brambleclaw clawed his way back to join her. "Come on, you can make it." "It's okay," she snapped. "I can manage." He blinked. "I know you can," he meowed, and Squirrelpaw wished she hadn't been so harsh. Duskpelt was behind them, carrying Birchkit in his jaws. Cloudtail struggled to his side. His pelt was streaked with mud, only his back kept white by the relentless rain. "I'll take the kit," he offered. He took Birchkit from Duskpelt's jaws, trying not to let the swaying bundle drag in the mud. Duskpelt nodded his thanks and plunged down a muddy ridge to help Ferncloud, who was fighting to stay on her paws. Crowpaw was carrying a kit too. He looked on the verge of collapse, but his paws kept moving, his eyes fixed on the ground in front of him. Squirrelpaw heard the rumble of two-legged monsters ahead, and their stench reached her even through the rain. She lifted her face, raindrops stinging her eyes, and saw two legs cluttering the horizon. "How do we get past?" she gasped. "Can we go around?" Firestar yowled to Mudclaw. "They're everywhere on the moor," one whisper called back. "This is the quietest place to cross, I promise." A monster with huge round paws and gleaming teeth roared across the landscape, while another churned up earth in its wake. Just beyond them, a small rocky outcrop from the mud. "If we can make it that far, we'll be safe for a while," Mudclaw advised. "The two-legged monsters can't climb those, but they can crush them if they want," Squirrelpaw thought, remembering the great rock. "You're right. Could be our only chance. Let's wait for these two monsters to pass and make a run for it." Firestar glanced at the other leaders, who each nodded their approval. Squirrelpaw pressed her belly deeper into the mud, feeling the cold earth seep through her fur and drench her skin. Cinderpelt crouched beside Tallstar, pushing a pawful of herbs towards him, the last of the traveling herbs, to give him strength, Squirrelpaw guessed. As soon as the monsters rumbled, Firestar gave the command to run. The ThunderClan cats rushed forwards. Squirrelpaw staggered blindly through the mud, keeping her eyes fixed on Brambleclaw's tabby pelt, as long as he was in sight. She felt she would be safe. By the time she reached the rocks, she was panting with fear and exhaustion. Brambleclaw reached down and hauled her onto the ledge, where the others had already gathered. Firestar weaved among them, his orange fur turned brown by the mud. His eyes were fixed on the cat still struggling towards the outcrop. Squirrelpaw reached the rock and held up the kit for one whisker to take before scrabbling after it. Squirrelpaw heard a two-leg shouting and turned to see it running unsteadily across the mud, waving its arms. It had seen the cat still heading for the rocks. Tawnypelt was among them, trying to drag a RiverClan apprentice out of the mud. Blackstar and Leopardstar must have hesitated before giving the order to run, Squirrelpaw hissed. The monsters were turning now, steering their paws towards the straggling cats. They'll never make it out to the rocks in time, Brambleclaw gasped. Must go back and help them, Firestar yelled. Desperation drove every scrap of tiredness from Squirrelpaw's body, and she leapt back down into the mud. Firestar flashed ahead of her. She felt Brambleclaw's pelt brush hers, and then she spotted Crowpaw, pelting toward the RiverClan cats. The monster's roar made Squirrelpaw's ears ring. She hurled herself among the RiverClan cats, reaching for an apprentice who was desperately trying to free himself from the mud. She plunged her teeth into his scruff to haul him out, and he raced away towards the rock. Thanks! Squirrelpaw looked up to see Stormfur watching her. He blinked gratefully and turned to yank another apprentice to its paws. My kit! Dawnflower screeched made Squirrelpaw spin around. One kit lay at the RiverClan Queen's paws. Another was racing panic-stricken straight towards a monster, too scared to see where he was going. I'll get him! Crowpaw lunged forward and grasped the kit in his jaws. Mud sprayed from his paws as he skidded back towards the outcrop. Squirrelpaw scooped up the other kit and gave it to Dawnflower, a fierce nudge. Quick, she hissed. She reached the rock and bounded up, finding a shadowy crevice out of sight of the two legs. She fled along the gully with the kit swinging in her jaws, until she emerged on the other side. Dawnflower shot out behind her, followed by Firestar and a stream of RiverClan cats. And finally, Crowpaw emerged with the other kit. Dawnflower raced over and gratefully took the kit from him. Squirrelpaw placed the other kit at her paws and looked around for his sister. Leave Paw, she called. She was crouching beside Tallstar. The WindClan leader's flanks heaved, and his eyes looked wild with fear. Hunted in my own territory, he wheezed. Leafpaw looked up when she heard Squirrelpaw's call. Can you look at these kits? Squirrelpaw asked. Leafpaw glanced uncertainly at Tallstar, but Cinderpelt appeared beside her. I'll look after him, she murmured. Leafpaw hurried over and sniffed each kit. She pressed her ear against the chest of one and then the other. Just scared and tired, she concluded. They'll be fine. Of course I'm fine, squeaked one of the kits. A dark gray female. The monster was never going to catch us. Hush, Willow Kit, soothed Dawnflower, as she bent to wash the mud from her kits' faces. The ShadowClan cats emerged from the gully. Is every cat with you? Firestar called to Blackstar. Blackstar nodded. too breathless to speak. The clans rested on the rocks for a moment, but another swath of churned up moorland still lay between them and the grassy slope that led down to the meadows, and the two lakes would be looking out for them by now. It wasn't safe to linger too long near the monsters. We should stay closer together, Firestar suggested. Travel like a single clan. And who would give the orders? Leopardstar demanded. You? Firestar shook his head. That's not important. I only meant it would be less dangerous if we were to stick together. I have no idea where we're going, Blackstar argued. We have to trust the cats who've made this journey already, and each clan has one of those. We can travel separately. We fell behind just now, Firestar pointed out. River Clan too. We must stick closer together, at least while we're near the two lakes. Blackstar narrowed his eyes. Closer together, yes, he conceded. But each clan should follow its own leader's orders. Squirrelpaw's paws pricked with frustration, fighting a bone weariness that made her head spin. She gazed across the stretch of land between the rocky outcrop and the edge of the moor. There were yet more monsters in the distance, lumbering up and down like terrifying border patrols. Brambleclaw padded up to her. I've spoken to the others. His voice was low, and Squirrelpaw understood that by others, he meant Tawnypelt, Crowpaw, and Stormfur. We've agreed to keep to the outside, he explained. That way we can look out for trouble and help any cat who falls behind. Crowpaw and I will stay at the back. Stormfur will lead, you take one side, and Tawnypelt will take the other. Squirrelpaw nodded. We've brought them this far. We have a responsibility to protect them, he added, his eyes darkening with worry. Squirrelpaw twined her tail with his. We've done the right thing, Sue whispered. I'm still sure of that. Are we ready? Firestar yelled. Slowly the cats gathered on the brink of the rocks, huddling close to the clanmates. Only Brambleclaw, Crowpaw, Squirrelpaw, and Stormfur, and Tawnypelt slipped away from the clans to take up positions at the edge of the group. Blackstar gave the order to move first, but Leopardstar, Firestar, and Mudclaw quickly followed, and the cats began to leap down from the reassuring hard surface of the outcrop and back into the slippery mud. They crept towards the monsters that guarded the edge of WindClan's territory, keeping low and quiet. Squirrelpaw skirted one edge of the group, keeping her ears pricked for any unexpected two-leg activity, as well as looking out for any cats falling behind. Leappaw fell in beside her. Is everything okay? I think so, Squirrelpaw murmured. I meant, are you okay? Leafpaw persisted. You don't have to protect all of us, you know. We made our own decisions to come on this journey. Squirrelpaw blinked gratefully at her. I know. As the clans neared the monsters, they slowed down, crouching so low that Squirrelpaw felt she had almost turned into a lump of mud. At least with the cats this filthy, they blended into the earth around them. The monsters were far away to one side and showed no sign of straying back here yet. There's mud in my eye, Birchkit squealed. Hush, snapped Ferncloud, and Birchkit fell silent. Squirrelpaw's heart pounded. Only a few more foxlinks and they would reach the crest of the slope that would take them away from this mud and the monsters. Suddenly she heard a sound that turned her blood to ice. A dog howled from somewhere near the monsters, and when she lifted her head to look, she saw it pelting toward them, its ears flapping and its giant paws leaping over the mud. Dog! Yelled Leopardstar. Run! Blackstar commanded. Squirrelpaw stared around in panic. There was no way the kids and elders could outrun a dog. As the other cats pelted forwards, Firestar and the other leaders raced among their clans yelling orders. Pick up the kits! Firestar commanded. "Help the elders," hissed Leopardstar. Squirrelpaw looked for Birchkit, but Rain Whisker had already scooped him up and was racing for the top of the slope. Ferncloud hurtled after him, but Squirrelpaw could hear the terrifying howls of the dog getting closer. The huge creature bounded easily over the rutted ground, bearing down on the cats even faster than the monsters had done. Already, the elders were falling behind, even though the other cats urged them forward with desperate yowls and nudges. Squirrelpaw glanced back to find out where Brambleclaw was, and with a jolt of horror, she watched him spin around and head straight towards the dog. Crowpaw and Tawnypelt raced beside him, hardly recognizable under the slick of mud that clung to their pelts. What were they doing? Stunned, Squirrelpaw watched them charge towards the vicious, snarling dog. And only when they got near did she understand what they were doing. Spreading out on Brambleclaw's hissed command, they surrounded the great black hound. At once, the creature slowed down, swinging its massive head from side to side as if it figured out which cat to chase. Then it fixed its eyes on Crowpaw and headed straight for the scrawny black warrior. Instantly, Crowpaw swerved towards Tawnypelt, his paw sliding in the mud. Tawnypelt shot past him in the other direction, yowling abuse at the dog as she dodged its snapping jaws. The dog hesitated, snarling, and set off after the ShadowClan warrior. Squirrelpaw's heart pounded with terror as she saw it gaining on her. But Brambleclaw was already racing up behind the dog. He raked its hind legs and swerved nimbly away as the dog spun around and gave chase. The two legs had heard the commotion, and one ran towards the dog, howling as Brambleclaw fled a fox length ahead of the creature's glistening fangs. Crowpaw had turned and was running for the dog again, hurtling past its nose and bringing it to a bewildered halt. Why'd I say stalt? Stop. Halt. It was actually halt, but I was thinking of stop. I'm gonna retake that sentence because, damn, I messed up. Crowpaw had turned and was running for the dog again, hurtling past its nose and bringing it to a bewildered halt. The dog gazed around, its eyes gleaming with fury. Crowpaw spun on his hind legs and raced back again. The dog lashed out, its jaws snapping close to Crowpaw's flank. The two-leg howled again and leaned forwards, reaching out with its paw. Squirrelpaw's breath stopped in her throat. "Don't let the two-leg catch you," she silently begged Crowpaw. They couldn't lose another cat this way. Then the two-leg's paw closed around the dog's collar and dragged it away. Squirrelpaw felt a dizzy relief. Crowpaw tore away from the two-leg, Tawnypelt and Brambleclaw on his tail. "Run!" he screeched as he streaked towards Squirrelpaw. She spun around and raced after her clanmates. Most of them had reached the top of the rise and were pelting down the other side. Squirrelpaw checked to see if any cat needed help, but the last elder's two ShadowClan cats, weak with fear, were being half dragged, half pushed to safety by Russet Fur and Stormfur. Squirrelpaw followed them as they stumbled over the crest of the hill and fled down the slope. Not until she was halfway down did she realize that she had crossed the WindClan border and left clan territory the very last time. The scent markers had been washed away by the mud and the rain and the stench of the monsters. Squirrelpaw forced herself not to look back. They had left their homes. The journey had truly begun. That was the end of chapter 18. Chapter 19. Like cloud shadows drifting over the ground, the clans trekked in silence across a meadow. Squirrelpaw was grateful that Brambleclaw walked close behind her, shielding her from the icy wind. The rain was easing now, but the clouds had been raked into tatters, by a thorn-sharp breeze that promised colder weather. Shivering, she looked up and saw a two-legged nest looming ahead, even bigger than the great rock. Her paws were sore from the prickly stubble that seemed to cover all the fields they had passed through, and she longed for the softness of leaves under paw. The air was filled with unfamiliar scents. Two legs, the monsters that prowled the crisscrossing thunder paths. The fresh scent of dog drifting from a two-legged nest, and the recent scent of rogues. Squirrelpaw felt the instinctive tension of any cat that strayed from its territory, even though she was surrounded by more clan cats than she had seen before in her life. She scanned the hedgerow, and her heart seemed to stop beating altogether. She saw brown beech leaves rustle madly, shaken by more than just the wind. Ravenpaw stepped out from his hiding place, like a shadow coming to life, and stared at the clans in surprise. A second cat slipped out the hedge behind him. Squirrelpaw recognized the black and white pelt of Barley, the cat who had allowed Ravenpaw to share his home in a two-legged barn for many moons. Firestar, is that you? Ravenpaw's ears twitched as he called out for his old friend. Clan cats halted and stared at him. Every cat knew about the black-pelted ThunderClan apprentice who had been driven out by his mentor, Tigerstar, even if they hadn't known him during his short time in the forest. Many had met him on the journey to High Stones. Hello, Ravenpaw. Tallstar dipped his head in greeting. Ravenpaw. Firestar pushed through the other cats to greet his old friend. Firestar. Ravenpaw touched noses with the ThunderClan leader. He looked around. Where's Graystripe? Firestar blinked. Graystripe's not with us. Is he dead? Ravenpaw's pelt bristled in shock. Firestar shook his head. Two Legs captured him. Two Legs? Ravenpaw echoed. Why? They started trapping us. Firestar's mew was raw with grief. We've been forced to leave the forest. What? Ravenpaw lifted his nose to scent the air. Is that why WindClan and RiverClan is with you? And ShadowClan? The Two Legs are destroying all of our homes, Firestar explained. We would have been crushed by their monsters if we stayed, if we didn't starve first. Look half-starved already, Barley remarked, coming forward. Hello, Barley, Firestar greeted him. How's the hunting? Better for me than for you by the looks of it, came the blunt reply. Where are you heading? Ravenpaw asked. High Stones first, and then... Firestar turned to look questioningly at Bramaclaw, but Bramaclaw just gazed back in silence. Stay with us tonight, won't you? Ravenpaw asked. The hunting is good this moon. The barn is full of rats, sheltering from the cold. Wait, Ravenpaw, warned Barley. This many cats would never fit into the barn. The Two Legs would have a fit when they came to get straw for the cows. That's true, Ravenpaw said. There must be a way to help. I suppose they could stay at the broken nest, Barley suggested. Of course! Ravenpaw turned to Firestar. You know the place where you sheltered with Bluestar after the rat attack? Firestar glanced up at the reddening clouds. I was hoping we'd make it to High Stones by tonight. You can't turn down the offer of food, Blackstar argued. Firestar dipped his head. You're right. He turned back to Ravenpaw. Thank you. Let's get you settled, and we can show the warriors the best places to hunt. Ravenpaw mewed. There'd be plenty for every cat. Squirrelpaw heard murmurs of excitement ripple through the clans, and the kids began to mew their hunger out loud, now that it seemed like there was a chance they would be fed. We need a rest and a meal more than you can imagine, Firestar meowed. Ravenpaw gazed at his friend's mud-stained pelt. Oh, Firestar, he murmured. I think I can imagine. The broken two-legged place had no roof, but now the rain had stopped. Its stone walls were enough to shelter the cats from the wind. "I recognize this," whispered Ashfoot, a Windclan queen. "We slept here when Firestar had led us back home, after Broken Star drove us out." Ad starts in a minute, you guys. "I didn't think we'd ever see this place again," Webfoot growled. The kids and elders streamed gratefully into the nest, glad of the chance to lie down. Ravenpaw and Barley led the warriors away to hunt, while the apprentices, Squirrelpaw and Crowpaw among them, stayed to guard the others. Cinderpaw and Leafpaw patted among the cats to check that none had been hurt in the desperate scramble across the moor. "Squirrelpaw," Leafpaw called, "can you fetch some rain-soaked moss from outside? Some of the queens and elders are too tired to walk that far." Squirrelpaw nodded and hurried away to pull pawfuls of sodden moss from ancient stones that formed the walls of the shelter. Okay, I'm gonna pause here. If you are not in ads, you are lucky, and I will be right back and we'll continue with everyone. That's in a couple of seconds. Welcome back, anyone that was stuck in the ads. We're gonna continue on. The cats took it from her eagerly. Lapping the water, they squeezed out with their forepaws. When the last Windclan elder had drunk her fill, Squirrelpaw decided she could settle down and rest her aching paws. As she made herself comfortable in a corner, the warriors returned, carrying fresh kill. Warm, delicious scents filled the shelter, and Squirrelpaw felt a quiver of joy as Brambleclaw dropped a plump rat in front of her. "Do you want to share?" he offered. "No," Brambleclaw mewed. "It's all yours." Squirrelpaw's belly ached by the time she had finished because she was unused to such a huge meal. But this sort of discomfort was far less frightening than hunger. And for the first time since returning to the forest, she felt warm and well fed. "This is a good place to rest," Tall Poppy purred. "I don't think my kids could take another night in the open. They nearly froze in last night's rain. They'll be warm enough tonight, Ferncloud agreed. It was dark when Bramaclaw returned. He settled down beside Squirrelpaw with a piece of fresh kill as big as the one he'd given her. Firestar was laying next to Sandstorm, their tails, pale ginger and dark red, curled together. Will you rest with us tonight? He mewed to Ravenpaw. He was watching the cats eat from the entrance to the nest. Yes, I'd like that. He padded over to the corner where ThunderClan had gathered. ShadowClan huddled opposite, while RiverClan and WindClan settled in separate corners. I never thought I'd sleep among the clan again, Ravenpaw murmured. I just wish it weren't under these circumstances, Firestar sighed. Ravenpaw's eyes darkened. How will you find a new home? StarClan would tell us, Squirrelpaw mewed. She glanced at Bramaclaw, but he didn't look up. Won't they? She looked at Leafpaw, uncertainty pricking at her paws. Leafpaw dipped her head, but said nothing. When Squirrelpaw woke, cold sunlight streamed into the nest. She flexed her claws, wondering how late it was. She had slept soundly, looking up. She saw her father standing on a fallen stone that made a natural platform in the center of the broken nest. All around him, cats were drowsily lifting their heads and blinking in the daylight. We've slept too long, Firestar mewed. It's sun high. We must push on to the high stones. Wherever we're going, we have a long journey ahead of us. Mudclaw got to his paws, a stubborn expression on his face. Why must we leave a place that has such good hunting? My kids have been well fed for the first time in moons, Tall Poppy put in. This is a pretty rich place, Tallstar agreed. The WindClan leader looked tired and drawn despite their long sleep. Ravenpaw only invited us to stay the night, Firestar argued. So, what could he do if we decided to stay longer? Blackstar stared defiantly at Ravenpaw. My clan needs food and shelter, and they'll take it by force if necessary. Ramaclaw stood up. This is not the place for us, he meowed. I don't know exactly where we're going, but I know it's not here. Squirrelpaw nodded. Why would StarClan have made a journey all the way to Sundrown Place if they only meant for us to make our homes here? We wouldn't need a sign for that. Crowpaw twitched his ears. Must finish the journey we've started, he growled. I agree, meowed Stormfur in the RiverClan corner. Me too. Tinypelt stretched, arching her back. Must carry on. I think they're right, Leopardstar meowed unexpectedly. There are too many two-legs around here. What if one of their dogs got loose? We would be trapped in a place like this. Oh, that was loud. My foot stand in my chair slid. Blackstar narrowed his eyes. Very well, he muttered. Top Poppy reluctantly got to her paws, nudging her kittens awake. Come on, my dears, she whispered. We're leaving. But it's warm here, mewed one. And there's fresh kill, squeaked another. We must go anyway, Tall Poppy told them. Her voice was dull with tiredness, and Squirrelpaw felt a jolt of sympathy for the brave ShadowClan queen. She padded towards the entrance, and her kits followed, their fur sticking up in clumps where they had slept on it. I'll come with you to the high stones, Ravenpaw offered, brushing his tail against Firestar's flank. The cats filed silently away from the shelter, heading for the crags of high stones that towered in the distance, dark against the clearing sky. Squirrelpaw shivered as the wind ruffled her fur. Sun High was already past. They slowed their pace to match the elders and kits. They would not reach the high stones until the sun had dipped below the horizon. So who is ThunderClan's deputy now? She heard Ravenpaw ask Firestar. Squirrelpaw glanced at Brambleclaw, but he kept his eyes fixed straight ahead. Graystripe is, Firestar growled. Ravenpaw stared at his friend in surprise. But he's gone. Firestar rounded on him, his eyes glittering with pain. Isn't it enough that we've had to leave our home? Don't ask me to give up on my friend as well. I know he would never give up on me. He started to trudge on again. ThunderClan has a deputy, and there's no need to choose a new one. 5 stones was cast in blue-black shade as the sun sank low in the sky. The cats had seemed to take forever, struggling up the deep, stony slope, on paws already raw from the day's traveling. Now they lay exhausted outside Mother Mouth. Squirrelpaw stared into the great black tunnel that led to the Moonstone. The clan leaders and the medicine cats had disappeared in it as soon as they arrived. I wish you'd gone with them, Squirrelpaw muttered to his sister. You could have told me what StarClan said. Leopardstar said this wasn't time for apprentices, and Firestar agreed with her. Leafpaw mewed. You think StarClan would tell them anything? Who knows, murmured Leafpaw. There was a sound of loose stones crunching beneath paws, and Firestar padded out of the tunnel, followed by Tallstar, Leopardstar, and Blackstar. Their faces gave nothing away as they separated to join their clans. I want to know what happened, Squirrelpaw fretted. They can't tell us anything about the ceremony, Leafpaw reminded her. Squirrelpaw felt a prickle of frustration. It was all right for Leafpaw. She had her own special connection with StarClan. She couldn't help out the cats who didn't. Squirrelpaw, Brambleclaw called. The tabby warrior was weaving his way towards her. We're meeting up there, he whispered. He nodded to the crest of the ridge. We have to decide where we're going next. Squirrelpaw put her head on one side. I thought we were going to the Sundrown Place to find Midnight. This is our last chance to be sure it's the right thing to do, Brambleclaw replied. After this, we'll be taking our clanmates into the territory where they've never been before. Come on. Squirrelpaw followed him up the steep slope, away from the rest of the clans. She could see Stormfur hurrying to the top of the ridge from the RiverClan cats, his gray pelt glowing in the moonlight. Tawnypelt and Crowpaw already sat on top of the jagged spine of rocks, silhouetted against the star-clad indigo sky. The shadowy world stretched away on the other side of the high stones, a huge black expanse that made Squirrelpaw's breath catch in her throat. Out there were snow-capped mountains, strange cats, dangerous creatures, and the Sundrown Place. That endless stretch of water where Midnight lived. Squirrelpaw shivered. Oh, StarClan, where are we going? Does everyone agree we should head for the Sundrown Place and find Midnight? Brambleclaw asked. Tawnypelt's eyes were round with worry. Can't think of what else we should do. What if she's not there anymore? It's a long and dangerous journey, Stormfur agreed. I was so sure we were going to lead them to a safe new home, Squirrelpaw meowed, remembering her excitement as she carried Midnight's message back from the Sundrown Place. We were going to save them. Instead, we might be leading them into an unnecessary danger, Brambleclaw murmured. Why couldn't StarClan have chosen different cats to carry this message? Stormfur sighed. Squirrelpaw's heart ached for him. He had lost so much. His sister had died on their first journey, and now Two Legs had taken his father. She moved closer to him, pressing her flank against his. You think our ancestors have abandoned us? Tawnypelt meowed, voicing the fear that nagged them all. Well, they haven't sent the sign Midnight promised, Brambleclaw admitted. Have any of you seen a dying warrior? Perhaps it was Mudfur? Stormfur suggested. It was a medicine cat, Squirrelpaw pointed out. Would Midnight know the difference? Murmured Tawny Pelt. Cats looked at another in silence. But Mudford died in RiverClan territory. A sickening pang of doubt suddenly twisted Squirrelpaw's belly. If Mudford's death was the sign, then we've come the wrong way. The 5 cats stared at one another, their eyes filled with dread, as they imagined telling their leaders that they had to take the clans all the way back into the heart of the forest to face the monsters once more. Oh, StarClan, have we gotten it all wrong? Squirrelpaw lifted her face to the sky and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, a flash of movement caught her attention. She gasped, and the other warrior cats followed her gaze. Above them, a falling star blazed, a silvery trail before disappearing in a flash of light. The dying warrior!
Why are you so sus?
Squirrelpaw breathed.
With your sussiness.
It was the sign they had been waiting for. One of StarClan's own warriors scorching into nothingness to show them the way to go. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in, and I hope you're enjoying the story. Faint as a cobweb, the star's fiery trail hung in the sky, stretching towards the horizon where the jagged peaks of the mountains jutted into the sky. Now I know which way to go, Bramclaw murmured. Over the mountains, meowed Squirrelpaw. That's the end of chapter 19. Gonna be starting chapter 20, which is the last chapter for the stream. Gonna drink some water first. Chapter 20. Leafpaw pushed closer against Cinderpelt as the chill of dawn dragged her awake. The stone beneath her seemed to have soaked all the warmth from her body, and the air was so cold that when she opened her eyes, she could see her breath billowing in small clouds. She stood up and stretched. The rocks glittered with frost in the pale dawn light, and a scent drifted up towards her so delicious it made her mouth water. Ravenpaw was padding up the slope with a freshly killed rabbit dangling from his jaws. The other ThunderClan cats were still sleeping, flustered in a dip in the rock several fox lengths away from where each of the other clans had settled for the night. But the scent of rabbit woke them, and they began to raise their heads as Ravenpaw weaved among them. Firestar was already stretching, Sandstorm at his side. When Ravenpaw dropped the fresh kill at the ThunderClan leader's paws. A parting gift, he mewed. Firestar stared at him. I wish you'd come with us, he meowed. I've lost Graystripe. I don't want to leave another friend behind. Ravenpaw shook his head. My home is here, but I'll never forget you, I promise. I'll be waiting for you, always. Leafpaw wondered with a pang if they would ever come back. She knew they were going to be traveling a long way, but she had no idea how far. We've been through so much together, Firestar murmured, his eyes gleaming as he remembered. We've seen the death of Bluestar, the defeat of Tigerstar, he sighed. So much has happened, like water flowing past in a river. More water will flow before we join StarClan, Ravenpaw assured him. This is not the end, it is a beginning. We need the courage of a lion to face this journey. It's hard to find courage when we've lost so much. Firestar's eyes clouded. I never thought I'd leave the forest. Even when BloodClan came, I would have died to save my home. Ravenpaw drew his tail gently along Firestar's flank. If I see Graystripe, I'll tell him which way you've gone. He promised. He dipped his head formally. Goodbye, Firestar, and good luck. Goodbye, Ravenpaw. As the black loner bounded away down the slope, Leafpaw's heart ached for her father. He was leaving behind his 2 oldest and closest friends, without even knowing if one of them was still alive. She watched Sandstorm press her cheek against his, as if to remind him he was not alone. Cinderpelt stretched her forelegs one after the other. We should check the cats and make sure they've all ready for the journey ahead, she meowed to Leafpaw. Leafpaw nodded. She thought back to the night before, when Squirrelpaw had returned with the others from the top of the ridge. Their eyes had been shining. We've seen the dying warrior. Brambleclaw's mew had been breathless with excitement. We've had the sign? Firestar leaped to his paws from where he had been dozing beside Sandstorm. How can you be sure? Cinderpelt asked. A star blazed through the sky, then vanished, Squirrelpaw explained. I fell behind the mountains. Blackstar ran over from where the ShadowClan huddled on the rock. He looked puzzled. Is this the sign we were waiting for at the Great Rock? Tawnypelt stared at him as if something had only just dawned on her. Of course. This must be the Great Rock Midnight meant. High stones, not the rock at 4 trees. Stormfur nodded. She's never been to the forest. What she saw obviously looked like a great rock, even though to us it meant something completely different. Leopardstar shouldered her way to the front. So it lies behind the mountains. Mountains? Ferncloud drew Birchkit closer to her. Last time we crossed them, we found the sun-drowned place, Brambleclaw explained. But this time, the stars seemed to fall further along. Hawkfrost narrowed his eyes. Do I have to find a new route? Not exactly, Brambleclaw told him. It'll be safer if we cross the mountains the same way we did last time. Tawnypelt mewed. Otherwise, we risk getting lost, and the snows might come at any time. We can head towards where the star fell once we're over them, Squirrelpaw put in. Leafpaw saw her sister's whiskers twitch, and Brambleclaw flexed his claws on the rock as if he was bracing himself for the journey. But there was a hunted look in their eyes as well. They were frightened of what lay ahead, because they knew what the journey might hold. With a twinge of alarm, Leafpaw wondered why StarClan had chosen a dying warrior to show them the way. It seemed a dark omen, on which to fix the hopes of the clans. Come on, Leafpaw. Cinderpelt's voice jolted her back to the frosty morning. Cinderpelt, Leafpaw mewed hesitantly. Do you think the sign from StarClan means they're coming with us? The gray medicine cat gave her a long, thoughtful look. I hope so. But you're not sure, Leafpaw gasped. Cinderpelt glanced around. No cat was near. When we went to the Moonstone yesterday, I could hardly hear StarClan, she admitted. But did they say anything? Leafpaw asked, alarmed. Cinderpelt narrowed her eyes. I know that they spoke to me, but I couldn't tell what they were saying. It was as if their voices were drowned by the roaring of the great wind. You couldn't make out anything? Nothing. Cinderpelt closed her eyes for a moment, but they were there. You must be suffering as much as we are, Leafpaw murmured. It must be terrible to watch the forest being destroyed, and to be powerless to stop it. After all, it was once their home too. Cinderpelt nodded. You're right, but like us, they will recover, as long as all 5 clans remain. But will they find us in our new home? Leafpaw fretted. They know where to look for us. These are questions we cannot answer. Cinderpelt straightened up, and her voice became brisk. Come on, our clanmates need us. Leafpaw padded to where Ravenpaw had left the rabbit. It lay untouched beside her father. A patrol of warriors had already left to find more. May I take this to Ferncloud and Birchkit? She asked. But Firestar seemed lost in thought. Of course. meowed Sandstorm. Leafpaw glanced anxiously up at her mother. Will he be okay? Firestar turned to face her. Of course I will, he meowed. Go ahead and take that to Ferncloud. Leafpaw picked up the rabbit and hurried to where Ferncloud was curled around Birchkit. The tabby kit was shivering with cold, and Ferncloud was licking him fiercely to warm him up. It's too cold to be sleeping outside, Ferncloud complained when Leafpaw appeared. I hardly got a moment's rest. She gazed at Birchkit, her eyes glittering with fear, and Leafpaw guessed she had dreaded closing her eyes in case she woke to find the last of her kits dead. Here, she dropped the rabbit on the ground. This should help. Ferncloud's eyes lit up, flashing a grateful glance at Leafpaw. He tore off a hind leg and placed it in front of Birchkit. Try this, she urged him. We used to eat rabbit all the time, but we haven't tasted it in moons. Make sure you have some too, Leafpaw advised Ferncloud. I will, Ferncloud promised. Leafpaw's belly growled, and she hoped the hunting patrol would return soon. She looked around to see if any of the other cats looked as though they needed help, but most of them were moving about quite cheerfully, shaking the stiffness from their limbs, and padding to the rocks to lap water from the tiny hollows. Several cats, Bramaclaw and Squirrelpaw among them, were sitting near the top of the ridge, the gray stone turned rosy by sunrise. Gonna have a sip of water real quick. Leafpaw heard Whitepaw pestering Bramaclaw. Tell us what it was like, please. Bramaclaw glanced over his shoulder at the far side of the ridge. You'll find out for yourself soon enough. Well, if you told us, we'd be ready for anything, Spiderpaw pointed out. He's right, Whitepaw mewed. You've got to prepare us. Bramaclaw drew his tail over his paws, with a resigned sigh. Well, there are lots of sheep, which are fluffy white woolly things that look a bit like clouds on legs. They're harmless, but you need to watch out for dogs when you see them, because the two legs use them to control the sheep, and thunderpaths, of course. They're mostly small, but there are so many to cross. And then there are the mountains. His voice trailed away, and Leafpaw felt the cold wind pierce her fur. What was it about the mountains that frightened these cats so much? How would they get kits and elders through such a place? Oh, StarClan, where are you? If only she could believe StarClan was traveling with them, perhaps she wouldn't feel so afraid. Leafpaw had never guessed such a vast world existed beyond Highstones. Field after field stretched before them, dotted with sheep, looking exactly like clouds, as Brambleclaw had described. Squirrelpaw padded beside her, her breath billowing in frosty air. Do you remember this? Leafpaw asked. A bit, Squirrelpaw mewed. So we're going the right way? Yes. Leafpaw wondered why her sister seemed so reluctant to talk. She watched her exchange an anxious glance with Brambleclaw. He had been weaving among the cats all morning, flanking first one side, then the other, as if he was afraid of losing one. Leafpaw felt the air tremble, and the rumbling in the distance made her pause. It sounded as if a storm was coming. The clear sky told her there couldn't be. She lifted her nose and sniffed the air. A thunderpath. It's a big one, Squirrelpaw warned. As they drew nearer, rumbling grew to a roar, and the stench began to burn Leafpaw's throat. The cats in front slowed down, jostling together, but still keeping closer to their clanmates than the other cats. Squirrelpaw pushed forwards and Leafpaw followed until they reached a ditch with steeply sloping sides. Beyond it lay the thunderpath. We should get the kids across first. Firestar led the way into the narrow gully. Leafpaw jumped down beside Sorrowtail, her paw slipping on the greasy grass. Monsters roared past in both directions, and she flinched as the earth shook beneath her paws. There's going to be another ad break in a minute, you guys. Each clan should take its own chances, Mudclaw insisted. RiverClan will cross first, Pawcross declared. Not all warriors are as strong as RiverClans, Leopardstar pointed out. Firestar's right. We should help the weaker clans. My clan doesn't need your help, hissed Mudclaw. Besides, it would be chaos. No cat would know whose orders to follow. And why don't you command us all? Firestar spat. No cat commands ShadowClan warriors except me, Blackstar growled. Brambleclaw pushed through the crowd and stood beside Firestar. Leafpaw was close enough to sense the fear in him. Cats will get killed while you're bickering. Surely it doesn't matter who's in charge until every cat is safely on the other side. We're gonna take a pause right there. And that should be the last ad break for this stream. I'll be right back. I made it back before the ad break ended. Let me see how many pages are left. Oh, this is a decent chapter. We have quite a bit to go in this chapter. Yeah. At least 10 more pages. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, from the ads. Got about 10 more pages. Let's go. Blackstar flattened his ears and Hawkfrost lashed his tail. Let him continue, Firestar warned. I'll lead ThunderClan, Brambleclaw meowed. Crowpaw can lead WindClan, Tawnypaw can take ShadowClan, and Stormfur, you can guide RiverClan. Crowpaw can't lead WindClan, Mudclaw argued. He's only an apprentice. Have you crossed this path before? Brambleclaw demanded. No, Mudclaw spat. But I have commanded my clan before. Crowpaw will lead, Brambleclaw hissed. Ignoring them both, Stormfur flicked his tail and led his clanmates to the edge of the Thunderpath. Where he crouched, waiting to give us the signal, a monster roared past, its pout glinting in the sunlight. As soon as it had gone, Stormfur yelled and the RiverClan cats surged up and over the Thunderpath. Leafpaw searched for Dawnflower, quickly spotting her pale gray coat and feeling a rush of relief when she saw that the two RiverClan warriors were helping to carry her kits. As the cats bundled on to the verge on the other side, Leafpaw heard the menacing rumble of another monster. Thinking StarClan that RiverClan had made it all safely, he looked up to see how far away it was. Her heart flipped over. Mudclaw had told his clan to start crossing without waiting for Crowpaw to give the command. Crowpaw started to panic as the monster screamed towards them. Hurry! He bolted forwards, scooping up a kit, and raced for the other side. Hurling the kit onto the verge, he raced back to grab another. Carry the kits! He ordered, scrabbling to get a grip on the slippery surface. He grabbed another kit by its scruff and raced for the far side once more. The warriors and apprentices seized the last of the kits and raced after him, with the queens at their heels. But Morningflower, the WindClan elder, fell behind. Run! Leafpaw yelled. Above her, Firestar crouched at the edge of the Thunderpath. His gaze flicked at the oncoming monster, judging whether he could reach Morningflower in time. Stay where you are, Bramaclaw screeched at him. Firestar crouched lower and flattened his ears. Keep going, you'll make it, he called to the WindClan she-cat. The monster bore down like a whirlwind and suddenly veered across the Thunderpath, straight towards Firestar. Leafpaw felt a wave of terror and shut her eyes, waiting for the sickening crunch of fur and bone. It never came. She opened her eyes a tiny slit to see the monster swept past Firestar so close that the wind tugged his fur. It roared away without slowing down. Leafpaw opened her eyes fully. Morningflower was limping determinedly across the Thunderpath, watched by her clanmates from the other side. Firestar backed away from the edge, his flanks heaving. It's okay. He's safe. Sorata touched her nose to Leafpaw's shoulder. Thought he was going to be killed, she whispered. Father's brave, Sorata murmured, but he's no fool. Leafpaw turned back to watch ShadowClan waiting to cross. She hoped that Blackstar had learned caution from Mudclaw's recklessness. The ShadowClan leader was watching Tawny Pelt. An apprentice darted forwards. Get back, Tawny Pelt hissed. The tone stopped the apprentice in his tracks, and he darted back to join the other cats. Go together, she insisted, glancing at Blackstar. He nodded. There were no monsters in sight. Cautiously, Blackstar padded forwards, lifting his nose to scent the air. Now, he called. And the ShadowClan cats leapt up the side of the ditch and spilled onto the Thunderpath. Tall Poppy's kits were carried safely by warriors, and Tall Poppy herself was swept along by her clan like a fish swimming downstream. Leafpaw sighed with relief as all the cats reached the other side, just before a monster set the earth trembling once more. We'll go after this one, Bramaclaw called. Suddenly, a tiny cry came from the far side. Leafpaw stiffened. One of Tall Poppy's kits had wandered back onto the Thunderpath. Dazed, it wandered in a circle on the hard path, mewing for its mother. Dustpelt and Mousefur flattened their bellies to the ground, ready to make a dash for the kit. Wait, Bramaclaw ordered. It's too dangerous. The clan held its position. Tall Poppy began to struggle through the mass of ShadowClan cats to reach her kit, but one of the RiverClan queens was closer. Dawnflower leaped onto the Thunderpath, scooped the kit out of the way of the monster. She carried it back to the verge, dropped it on the grass, and began licking it roughly. Suddenly she stopped and swiped her tongue around her lips in confusion as she realized the kit was not her own. She glanced self-consciously at her clanmates as Tall Poppy bounded over and snatched up her kit. Leafpaw tensed, hoping Tall Poppy wasn't offended by the RiverClan Queen's intervention. But her eyes were brimming with gratitude, and she dipped her head to Dawnflower before carrying her kit away. That's where Feathertail rescued me from the fence stuff. Squirrelpaw pointed with her nose to the shiny prickly thread that hung between the wooden posts. The Thunderpath was behind them now, and Leafpaw's paws had finally stopped shaking. She was grateful to her sister for distracting her with stories of her first journey here, while the others were busy arguing about what to do. Squirrelpaw went on. Feathertail rubbed my fur with some chewed-up dock leaves, and I slipped out like a fish. You left half your pelt behind, though, Stormfur reminded her, and Squirrelpaw swatted him playfully with her forepaw in reply. There seemed to be no danger here, no fresh scents of two-legs or dogs, just lots of sheep that grazed noisily, paying no attention to the cats. The cats spread across the meadow, each clan keeping to itself. Only Crowpaw, Tinypelt, Bramclaw, and Squirrelpaw, and Stormfur broke away from their clanmates, taking turns hurrying up and down the line, watching for stragglers. Tallstar trekked wearily along. One Whisker had not left his side all day. The other leaders glanced at the elderly WindClan cat from time to time, clearly worried. We should find a place to rest, Fogface advised, as the sky darkened and a chill breeze ruffled the cat's fur. There's a copse up ahead, Firestar meowed. We could find shelter there. The other leaders nodded, and the cats climbed to the top of the sloping field and padded into the wood. Leafpaw sank gratefully onto a pile of moss. I smell fox, Blackstar warned. The scent is stale, Leopardstar observed, scenting the air. But it might come back while we're sleeping, Mudclaw meowed. Clans should all sleep together, called Dawnflower, reaching out with her tail to stop her tomkit. Plump, round-faced Tabby, from wandering after a woodlouse. Hide down, Tumblecit, she scolded. The kits and queens should sleep in the center, one Whisker suggested. It'll be safest there. He glanced at Tallstar. The oldest cat should join them. Very well, Blackstar agreed. Each clan will post 2 guards to keep watch. Leafpaw padded over to Sorrowtail, grateful for the shelter of the bracken. Ferncloud should sleep soundly tonight, she decided. With 4 clans and thick undergrowth to keep Birchkit warm, the woods were very quiet, the frosty silence broken only by the hooting of an owl. It wasn't home, and the jumbled sense of 4 different clans made Leafpaw's nose twitch. But she felt safe enough to curl up next to Cinderpelt and go to sleep. Leafpaw slowly grew used to dealing with the Thunderpaths as they trekked toward the setting sun. The clans still crossed separately, but the queens watched out for each other's kits now, having seen how easily the youngest cats were confused by the noise and the stench of the monsters. Like cobwebs in the rain, clan boundaries were beginning to dissolve. She had reached the mountains this evening, Brambleclaw announced as Leafpaw did her morning rounds of the clan, checking for injuries or signs of infection. Are we getting that close? She stared up at the peaks, which had grown from a tiny line on the horizon into a forbidding mass of stone. She shivered at the sight of the snow that capped the highest crags. Some of the cats had already begun coughing, awakening Leafpaw's fear of green cough, the illness that could wipe out an entire clan in Leafbear. Leafpaw, Firestar called. Are you up for a little hunting? Yes, please, she replied eagerly. She had been so busy tending to the clan, patting cuts with Cobweb, soothing scratches with Doc, trying to make best of what herbs she and Cinderbelt had found along the way, that she had not hunted in days. Go with Bramaclaw and Squirrelpaw then, Firestar ordered. If you can bring back a mouse or two. Squirrelpaw bounded to her side. Which way shall we go? Should be plenty of mice in that field over there. Bramaclaw pointed with his tail to an open meadow beyond the hedgerow. Come on then, Squirrelpaw urged. Bramaclaw charged after her, and Leafpaw followed, wriggling through the hedge to find herself in a broad, grassy space. While Bramaclaw and Squirrelpaw ranged around the edge of the field, she headed into the long grass battered down by leaf-bare winds and rain. Almost at once, she smelled a mouse. After the long, hungry moons in the prey-scarce forest they had left behind, Leafpaw could not believe her luck. Crouching down, she prowled through the grass until she found the freshest trail. A moment later, she spotted a twitch of brown scrabbling deep in the grass, and pounced. The mouse darted away before her paws hit the ground, and she only flattened the tussock where had been sitting a heartbeat before. Seer more accustomed to forest hunting, Hawkfrost's condescending mew made Leafpaw jump. She spun around to find the River Clan warrior calmly watching her, his tail curled over his paws. Haven't you gotten anything better to do? She challenged him. Like hunt for your own clan. I've already caught 3 mice and a thrush, he meowed. I think I've earned a rest. As Leafpaw searched for a sharp reply, Hawkfrost lifted his nose and scented the air. Dog, he hissed, heading this way. Leafpaw could hear the heavy paw steps now, pounding through the grass. She stared around in terror, wondering which way to run. Get back to the hedge, Hawkfrost commanded. Leafpaw began to run, but an angry snarl made her freeze. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw Hawkfrost arching his back at a snarling black and white dog. The RiverClan warrior let out a hiss and leaped back, lashing out to rake his claws across the dog's snout. Bramaclaw, Squirrelpaw, help! Leafpaw yelled. The dog lunged again. Hawkfrost sprang out of the way. The dog turned in an instant and snapped at the air where Hawkfrost had been. Look out! Bramaclaw burst out of the grass beside Leafpaw and leapt on to the back of the dog. He clung on with piercing claws as it bucked and howled and struggled to shake him off. Bramaclaw hung on, but the dog twisted its head and clamped its jaws shut only a mouse length from below Bramaclaw's face. Hissing in terror, Bramaclaw let go and was hurled to the ground. In a heartbeat, it took him to recover. The dog had rounded on him, slavering with rage. Just in time, Hawkfrost threw himself in front of Bramaclaw, aiming a flurry of thorn-sharp swipes at the dog's muzzle. Bramaclaw scrabbled to his paws and joined the attack. Leafpaw stood stiff-legged with horror, watching the 2 warriors turn and move and hunch their massive shoulders as though one were a reflection of the other. The dog began to back away with its tail clamped between its legs. Hawkfrost reared up on his hind legs and hissed so menacingly that the dog yelped and ran for the hedge. Bramaclaw, are you all right? Leafpaw gasped. Yes, I'm fine. Good job. I was here to save you. Huh? Hang on a second, you guys. I think they typed this wrong. It says, good job, I was here to save you. I think this meant to say, good, I was here to save you, without the job. They added a word. I'm gonna retake that one. Good, I was here to save you, Hawkfrost sneered. I saved you, in case you've forgotten, Bramaclaw retorted. Hawkfrost shrugged. I suppose you did, he admitted ungraciously. Well, I guess you scared that mud off pretty well, Bramaclaw conceded. What's going on? Squirrelpaw hurried out of the long grass. I smell dog. It attacked us. Bramaclaw and Hawkfrost scared it, Leafpaw reported. You're kidding, gasped Squirrelpaw. I'm going back now, Hawkfrost announced abruptly. The narrow escape didn't seem to have made him any friendlier, and Leafpaw was happy to see the RiverClan warrior stalk away. Come on, let's keep hunting, meowed Brambleclaw, bounded off through the grass. Come on, Leafpaw, Squirrelpaw called over her shoulder. We need to eat well before we head into the mountains. Leafpaw looked up at the snow-dappled peaks. She wished she shared her sister's courage. The clans had struggled enough this far. How would the kids and elders cope with rocks and ice and sheer, dizzying cliffs? How would the warriors and apprentices cope, for that matter? She shut her eyes and uttered a silent prayer to StarClan. But she felt hollow with dread as her words came echoing emptily back, as if there was no one there to listen. That is the end of chapter 20. That was the last chapter for the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the chapters, and it looks like they will eventually come together, but it's gonna take some time, definitely. And I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of mistakes that happen. Let me look and see if I can find anyone that is on my list, hopefully doing ASMR. Oh, there is one person. Oh look, it's Nixie. And Nixie had raided before. Let me go to the page. There we go. Alright, you guys, we're gonna go ahead and raid to Nixie. I hope you guys had a wonderful time, and I will catch you guys later.